Hi everybody. All of a sudden I've gotten a lot of new subscribers thanks to Boomer. I really appreciate him sharing my video, and I really appreciate people who are subscribing. I thought I'd do a short channel introduction for the newer subscribers to know what you're getting into. So basically this is my two N-scale switching layouts, which I joined together this past year. Chillicothe, Ohio on the left, Oak Hill, Ohio on the right. And then the connection in the middle is completely fictional, just something that I did to connect the two. We'll talk about Chillicothe in the next video, but I'm going to give a brief description of Oak Hill at the end of this video. But my channel is not just about N-scale. I also have other interests. So I have a garden railroad that I operate. I'm a little bit different than most garden railroaders. I paint and weather my own equipment, and I operate it with a switch list. It's not a big garden railroad, but it is a nice, nicely laid out garden railroad, and it's based on like an N&W coal branch in eastern Kentucky. I travel for business, so sometimes I do rail fanning videos, and I don't have a scanner. Well, I have one, but I never use it. I just go out and try to shoot trains. So occasionally you'll see some trains of me shooting videos. When I was getting ready to build the connection between the two, I had never done scenery like that before. So I built a bridge module based on Luke Towan's methods. Tried to follow it as close as I could. And so I have a playlist about that too. So basically I have 5 playlists on my channel. I have the N-scale bridge module playlist. I have one for real trains. I have one for G-scale, one for Oak Hill, and then the N-scale one is just basically mostly about Chillicothe. And anytime I do operations in Chillicothe, I have a playlist for that. I put that in the N-scale playlist. Okay, a couple more things before we get started on Oak Hill. As Mike Pfeiffer says, excuse the shaky cam. So this is my training room. It's just a spare bedroom in our house. This is Chillicothe. I use plexiglass covers, Lowe's, keep the dust off of it. Really helps a lot. They're just hanging there off the valance. Just have some pictures. My son is a professional photographer. He took this up in Cincinnati, Ohio at Union Station. Those are the two Chillicothe, Ohio, two pictures of the Chillicothe, Ohio depot, which is no longer there, unfortunately. Burnt down about 10 years ago. My dad was built model airplanes his entire life. He passed away about 8 years ago. We kept some of his wings as souvenirs. So this is the bridge module that I talk about. It's just collecting dust now. I don't have anything to do with it. We're really good to display it. And this is a picture I have, even though I'm modeling the B&O and chassis system. I grew up right next to the N&W. And the N&W is actually my favorite railroad, but it didn't have as big a presence in Chillicothe. I grew up about 100 feet from the main line, and the guy in the Derby was my grandfather, who was a carpenter foreman for the N&W for his whole life. Pictures up above are just some pictures my daughter got me of some railroads in Lexington, eastern Kentucky. So thought I'd go ahead and answer some of those questions now in case they came up. Okay, let's talk about Oak Hill. Oak Hill's a little town, 1,500, 2,000 people, southeastern Ohio. Used to have a huge brick industry. The clay industry is really big in this area. So there used to be 5 brick plants in Oak Hill. None of them exist anymore, although clay is still mined and shipped out and processed and things like that there. So the depots, basically the way the train is coming in is from Jackson, Ohio. This was the old Portsmouth branch of the B&O. So trains will come in, and I have 3 industries in Oak Hill. The brick plant where I forgot to get myself a pointer. Okay, so the brick plant is on the right. This is going to be Cedar Heights clay, and I'll intersperse this with pictures of the real thing. And this is a scrapyard here now, which used to be a brick plant. It actually uses the concrete loading dock of the old brick plant still to this day. There is a main track running through Oak Hill, which hasn't seen a train in about 15 years. The line is cut where it crosses Route 93, so I guess technically it's rail banked, maybe, in case the industry ever would come back, but I don't think one is going to come back to Oak Hill the way things are going now. The depots were torn down in the early 80s. Those are pretty much scale representations of them that I took a kit and modified it, so that's why the roof looks like that. And again, I'll intersperse it with some pictures. So let me stop here, and I will show you some pictures of the depot the way it is, and then I'll talk about each of the industries as the train comes up to them. So where the 70-ton hoppers are is going to be Cedar Heights Clay. I really agonized about this crossing. There's not a crossing in Oak Hill like that, but Cedar Heights Clay came in this way and the brickyard came the other way, but actually flipped them. The brickyard was actually on the left. I decided to rather have these spurs oriented the correct way rather than to have them in the right locations, I guess is how to say it. I try to be as faithful to the track work and everything as I can, but you know, we have limitations. We're model railroaders. So the right in front of you is a scrap yard. It's Charrington Scrap. They ship out in gondolas. Again, they're still in business, but no rail service now. And they were built on the remains of an old brick plant. So they have a big concrete loading platform. They actually have a fence up above that. And they had a crane that would lower the scrap into the waiting gondolas down below. As I pan around to the right, this is going to be Davis Fire Brick, where the boxcars are. And that's the loading dock is still there, and I'll show you some pictures of it. It was still in business in the 80s. One time when Oak Hill had 5 brickyards, they said that one time on a Friday they shipped out over 50 cars of bricks. So it was a big big industry down there. Where these cars are parked, that's the end of the layout, but I'm going to have a staging yard, which is going to be a slash staging fiddle yard going around curving ahead of the door. That's a problem I have to solve because I have the door there. And so what I think I'm going to have to do is have this come off at an angle and have a staging yard come over to here and have a support from this bookshelf that holds it up. So obviously when I'm operating, actually I don't think you can see the bookshelf. Let's see. There's the bookshelf. When I'm operating, I'm going to have the door shut and locked, or else leave it open and duck under the staging. There are 2 industries down there. There's a Knock and Sons, which got clay and covered hoppers, and then there's also, and they processed it. And there's another industry down there that also had covered hoppers and actually used Southern Pacific covered hoppers a lot. I have to stop the train before it pushes these off the end of the track. I think the toothpick would stop it, but not sure. Don't want to take the chance. So basically, Oak Hill has 3 industries. So the way I envision this operating is the train would come in from the north, Jackson. Train would come in here. It would be blocked, so the cars for the south end of the layout, the offline industries, would be in the front. Then the cars for Cedar Heights Clay would be next. And Cedar Heights had their own small fleet of 70-ton covered hoppers, and actually had some decals made. I think it was Circus City made them. Zoom in a little bit here on them. So those are pretty close to what they. I think they had 15 covered hoppers, something like that. So they would switch Cedar Heights Clay because it's a trailing point spur. Then they would leave the rest of the train in Oak Hill. They would go south to my fiddle yard, where I would drop off cars and pick up cars that were basically in a box. So, and I would come back north into Oak Hill. And at that point, I had 2 spurs left to serve. I would switch Davis Firebrick with the box cars, and I would switch Charrington Scrap, and then I would head back north. Typically, there's a B&O Ohio Division Facebook group, and I've asked a lot of questions on there. And some guy, when they tore down the depots, he got a lot of the records from it. So 7980 typical train coming into Oak Hill had, maybe 10 to 15 cars. I don't know if I can model it. I don't know if I have that much room. But I'll have, 7, 8 cars, maybe 10. The passing siding isn't really long enough to have that long of a train. So Oak Hill was basically a single track all the way through, and I had a passing siding on it. Route 93 in the back here. In reality, stayed on this side of the tracks all the way through town, and then the spurs crossed it to switch over, so it blocked the traffic a lot. I'm not going to be able to do that because I don't want to have I don't want to have Route 93 run with a crossover in the middle of it. I know they exist, but I'm probably going to have Route 93 come up and cross the tracks right here, right before Charrington Scrap, and then go out of town on this side of the road. And scenery-wise, I plan, because Southern Ohio had a lot of old strip mines, a lot of high sulfur coal. There's still a lot of coal in Southern Ohio, but a lot of it is unburnable. But there's a lot of old swampy areas, unreclaimed areas. So I plan on just having like a sort of a swampy area here, which is real prototypical for that area. And then there'll be a little side street coming off here, which will be the entrance to the Charrington Scrap. So this is Main Street in Oak Hill. Oak Hill it's not a very big town. Be a post office, a restaurant in there. I like to try to get buildings, even if I can't duplicate them exactly. I like to try to sort of copy them. So I've got this gas station kit. There was a gas station that had this like awning out here, which basically sat right here on Railroad Street. So I'm going to try to sort of modify that kit to look like that gas station. But I like to spend my modeling time more on the railroad buildings than the non-railroad buildings. Non-railroad buildings, to me, they can just be like stand-ins. I'm not going to spend a lot of time scratch building a pharmacy because that's the way it looks. I'll just get a design preservations kit and try to make it look like that or something. I just don't. But the depots, again, I'll end this with some pictures of my model and the real one, and then I'll actually show you some pictures of the industries that I'm trying to model, at least as they are today. I don't really have a lot of historic pictures from the 80s. So that's a sort of introduction to my channel. Chillicothe, I almost had it all built and operating before I ever started on YouTube. I never really thought about it. I had some YouTube videos up, but they were mainly just about G-scale stuff, plowing snow and everything. So this is going to be more, Oak Hill is going to be more, you'll get to see it being built. So I anticipate my videos slowing down. There are times I'll post 4 or 5 videos in a week because I'll do operations, and I'll still do that. But scratch building structures and things takes longer. But I'll try to keep, you'll probably still see 1 or 2 videos a week from me, and I'll put them in the appropriate playlists. And I'll tell you on the video, I'm going to put this in a G-scale playlist or whatever. So anyhow, welcome to the channel. For those of you who have been around for a while, I thought hopefully this is a good refresher where we're going anyhow. And I'll end this now. I've been talking too much. Again, you saw the train moving. This is basically this GP7. I'll give a little bit of props to my friend Benjamin Horn. Atlas GP7. That's at speed step 1. It has sound, but I've got the sound turned off. Actually, it has great sound. Turn it on for a second. And it just runs phenomenal. I think he's put a couple of capacitors in there, but it'll just creep. I mean, it ran all the way across the layout like at speed step 1. So it really runs great. This is Microengineering Code 70 track, by the way, in case I didn't mention it. Alright, so that's enough talking. Longer video than I wanted, but I'll tack a bunch of pictures here on the end. And again, welcome to the channel, and stay safe. This is Davis Fire Brick, later in life. You see all the box cars at the loading spur there. This is what's left. The only building left is the old machine shop. Cedar Heights clay, some recent pictures. Aerial view, very interesting roof line. Most of this has to be in the backdrop though. And here's a few pictures of chunk and scrap. You can clearly see the old loading dock for the brick company, and that has a fence above it. And then they just lowered the scrap with a crane down into the cars. So that'll be interesting modeling. Unfortunately, it's going to be away from the layout. And this is the gas station that I'm going to try to modify at an earlier time. But wait, there's more. It's my Jawtooth tribute. Forgot to mention the DTNI had trackage rights through Oak Hill for their Ironton branch. They didn't serve any businesses in Oak Hill, but they would run through southbound and then back northbound every day. So I intend to duplicate that. One of the tracks in the staging yard is going to be dedicated to a DTNI train. And so that's originally what got me interested in Oak Hill. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever went through Oak Hill, I was following the Ironton branch of the DTNI. So it's another part of the interesting operation of the railroad. Everybody stay safe.